Hello everyone, this is Satyaprakash. Welcome to my channel. In this part 22 of Angular CLI, we'll discuss what are the complete guide to Angular routing. So I'll suggest you before going through this part 22, please visit my part 21 of Angular CLI, that is Angular routing and navigation menu with Bootstrap. So part 22, it is a continuation part of part 21. So please visit my part 21 first. So in this part 22 we'll discuss that is what are the quick steps to implement routing and why we need route type in Angular application. So as we have seen my previous video, there are many small steps that you have to remember to implement routing exactly in an Angular application. So let's quickly recap those steps. Step 1 is I'll show you in my code, that is set base href in index.cshtml. So this is the step 1. And step 2 is import the router module into the application root module. So if we'll go to app.module.ts, here you can see that we already have imported our router module into the application root module, that is app module. So step 3 is configure the application routes. So you can see that we have one constant app routes. Inside the routes type we have mentioned some application routes, that is home component, employees path is corresponds to employees component. If you put an empty, then it will by default go to the home component, and if there is an invalid component, invalid data or the request by the user, then the component should be page not found component. And step 4, and after then we have in the declaration we have mentioned all these components, and import module we have imported import section. You can see that in that array router module.forroot app routes, so that whatever you can see here components, then it will go to that particular component HTML file. Alright, so step 4 is specify the router outlet directive. So here I'll go to app.component.html. So here you can see we specify where we want the router component view template to be displayed using router hyphen outlet directive, right? And here step 5, you can see create the navigation menu and tie the configure routes with the menu using router link directive, and we have used the router link active directive style directives to style the current route that is active, so the user knows the page is that it is on and in the application. So that means if you'll go to my application, so here you can see two routes there, home and employees. If you go to home, it shows the home works. If you go to employees, it shows employees works. If you give any empty here and click here, it will go to the home component, right? You can see here home component. If you go to, if pass any invalid string here xyz, then it will go to that page not found component. You can see here. So that's all about that code we have written earlier in app.component.html file. So now let's connect all these simple steps and see how routing actually works. So guys, I'll show you. I already have open my application. So this is the home component and this is the employees component, right? And it is nothing but the routes. Okay, so we have built the home and employees links using router link directive. The router link direct states the Angular router where to navigate when the respective link are clicked. So if you'll go to home, it will go to homeworks, right? So for the example, if we click on the home link, the Angular router includes /home in the URL. You can see here, right? So step 2 is I'll go to my app.model.ts file. So when the URL changes, right, when the URL changes, the Angular router looks for the corresponding route in the route configuration. So in this case, URL changed to /home, so the router looks for the home routes, right? You can see here, if you press home, it will go to home component. That's why it is mentioned that so URL, if the URL change to /home here, so the router looks for the home route. So we have home route already configured in my app.model.ts file, right? So in the route configuration, we have specified to use home component. So if you go to /home, it will go to it will be specified to use the home component. So step number 3 is go to home.component.html file. So what it shows that, so the Angular router knows to display the home component view template, but the question is, where should the home component view template be displayed, right? So I'll show you in step number 4. So I'll go to app.component.ts file here. So here at this point, the Angular router looks for the router-outlet directive, right? So the component view template then displayed at the location where we have the router-outlet directive. In our case, we placed router-outlet directive in the root component, that is app component, right? You can see here. So it is nothing but the app root selector, and because that is the top level component where we want our router component template to be displayed. So step 5 is, I'll open my index.html, and here you can see that we have specified app-root as the selector for the root component, that is app component, right? So if you go to this one, app component, so this selector for the root component, that is app component, you can see here the selector is mentioned as app-root. So if you go to index.html, so here also app-root, you can see that app-root is mentioned as the selector here. So this selector, that is app-root, is used as a directive in the application host page, that is index.html. So along with the navigation menu HTML that we already have in the root component, the home component view template is also displayed, right? So, and step number 6 is go to app.model.ts file, and here what I'll do, you can see here, and the same way the employees link works. So if you'll go to click on employees, it shows employees works. That means the /employees is mapped to the route, that is the employees route, right? So employees means it will go to specify to the employees component. So same way home component, employees component is works as expected here. So so here instead of home component for employees, it shows as employees component. So guys, here what I'll do here when I'll go to my app.model.ts file, yeah, so here when configuring routes in our previous videos, we imported routes type from Angular router, right? Here you can see, if you look at the definition of routes type, how to see, so right click here on the routes type, go to definition. So if you look at the definition of routes types, it is actually an array of, right? It is an array of routes objects. So this routes type not required for the application to work. Even if you remove the routes type declaration from app routes, the application routing will work exactly as the same way as before. So I'll show you. Go to app.module.ts file. We just remove that routes type here, and if you save these changes, go to here, you can see it starts compiling our project, and it will reflect in the browser as a output. So even after removing this routes type from the constant, right, it will work as expected as it was. So it starts loading my link new project. So guys, here you can see that the same output when we click on home, it works, home works. If you click on employees, employees works. If you put any empty here, it will by default it goes to home works. If you put any invalid string, then it will go to page not found component, right? So after removing this routes type, it works as expected. There is no issue. But why we need this routes type? So using it provides us the compile time checking if we misspell the properties of route object. So that means, see, this is the path here. It's the property. You can see in when I hover this mouse on this path, it shows it is a property path, and type is string. So if you remove this, something like this path here, so you cannot see here any compile time error, right? We cannot see. So if you add this route type, and if you try to remove that path here, right, you can see that one compile time error is showing. That is the type PAT string component type of home component. It is not assignable to type route. So because the PAT is not a property of routes type, that it was showing here in the error. So object literal may only specify known properties, but PAT does not exist in route type. So that means it is the reason behind the routes type we need to use to check the compile time error. If we misspell any properties in the route object, it will show as the warning here. Alright, so we save these changes, and we'll go to the in the command prompt. Also you can see that whatever error it was showing in the compile time error in VS Code, it in the command prompt also it shows the same error, that is PAT does not exist in route type. So after successful compilation of mentioning the routes type and its valid properties, if you go to browser and it starts loading to show the output. So you can see if you click on homes, go to home component. If you click on employee, it will go to employees component. If you put any empty string here, it will go to by default home component here. And if you'll put any invalid string, so it will go to page not found component. As expected, it was working, right? So I'll go to my presentation here. So what are the quick steps to implement routing? Step 1 is set base href in index.html. Import the router module into the application root module, that is app module. Configure the application routes. Specify where you want the routed component view template to be displayed. Create a navigation menu and tie the configured routes with the menu. And why routes type in Angular application is required? It provides us compile time checking if we misspell the properties of the route object. So routes type is actually an array of route objects. This is my YouTube channel. Subscribe and share it to get the up-to-date knowledge on .NET Core, C#, SQL Server, GitHub, DevOps, and Angular. So at the moment, routing is implemented in the root app module. So however, for better maintainability, it needs to implement routing in a separate routing module and then import that routing module in the app module. So in our upcoming video, I will show you how to uh, move the routing in a separate routing module. So as of now in this session, what we have learned today, that is what are the quick steps to implement routing and why we need routes type in Angular application. So that's all for today guys. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.